Welcome to the Breakaway Entrepreneur Podcast, where master business coach Janet Fish and her special guests explore the characteristics and traits that lead entrepreneurs to success. Get ready for real conversations of what it takes to overcome real challenges and break away from your competition. Here's your host, Janet Fish.
Thanks, Ben. In this episode, my guest, Wendy Byford, shares with us her methodology for starting a business. Wendy focuses specifically on women leaving their jobs, which I think is perfect for the times we are in. I think there are going to be a lot of women and men whose jobs don't come back post-pandemic. In this episode, we talk about identifying your why, what is your superpower, how to use your superpower to help others, the need for a backup plan for when things go wrong, because they will, how to get support because you don't have to do it alone. I hope you enjoy our chat. True confessions here, I am still absolutely obsessed with building my email list and creating autoresponder campaigns. I keep hearing from people saying that they know they need to have an email list, but they don't. They have an email list, but they're not doing anything with it. They have business cards sitting around in their office somewhere, but they're not creating campaigns. They're not engaging their audience. So due to popular demand, I created a course, Business Cards to Cash, that will help you do all of those. Included in the course are 3 of my most popular automations, along with all of the email copy that are associated with that. So if you're struggling to really capitalize on email marketing in your business, click the link below to learn more. All right, breakaway entrepreneurs. I am super excited. I say it every single week. I'm super excited for my guest, and that is no different than this week, Wendy Byford. Wendy and I go back. We were just trying to figure out how many years it's been. It was 2003 or 4 or something. So I've known Wendy and her husband for a very, very long time. And I'm very excited to have you on the show today. So welcome, Wendy.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. All right. First, I'm going to start with introducing you to the listeners. So I'm going to just read your bio, and then we're going to jump right in because I know we'll have a lot to talk about today. So after 30 years in corporate America, Wendy started a business to form corporations and limited liability companies, and over 15 years grew it to 7 figures. And I can attest to that because I think you have done over the years at least 7 or 8 entities for me. So I am a loyal customer. She set up over 30,000 entities for more than 25,000 clients and gave those folks the tools and coaching they needed to learn how to manage their entities properly. With the current shift in the marketplace, Wendy is now focusing on an area that she believes needs support, encouragement, and radical honesty, helping women who are in or have left corporate America to set up their first business. So once again, welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. This is really exciting, Janet.
Yeah, it is exciting for me too, especially since, I'm just going to do a testimonial for you and Gary as your entity solutions, because like I said, you set up multiple entities for me way back in the day. I still have a couple of the ones that you guys have set up. But not only did you do that, because of course people can go on the internet and get their entities set up, but you worked with me and a strategy one so that because I had multiple entities and properties and all those kinds of things. So you set me up with the right strategy, but then you also taught me the important things about how to keep my entity in good standings, like doing minutes and resolutions, and I have a meeting with myself every year, and I have my corporate. So I thank you for that and all of your years of service in that, because you are awesome. And I know that you will bring that same level of conscientiousness and helpfulness and supportiveness to kind of your new direction. So let's jump right in. Obviously, things have changed in the marketplace. So kind of share with us what drove you to make this change.
Well, it's really interesting, Janet, because sometimes when something is supposed to happen, you don't realize it, but you create the circumstances. And I firmly believe that the universe is always listening. And so you get what you put out there. And over the years, the type of clientele that we have had has shifted. My love has always been coaching. It's always been training. It's always been teaching people. It's always been helping people. And more of our clientele just wanted the LLC and didn't care about the education part, which made the job, I guess, less fun for me, less of a mission and more of a job, if you like. And so I firmly believe that, without realizing it, I told the universe, hey, it's time for a change. And so the marketplace started to shift to people who just wanted, I want to get this set up the fastest way possible with the least amount of cost, which has never been our model. Our model has always been to do it right and to make sure that you got not only your state filing, but you got your EIN, you got your company record book, and you got all the education and coaching and support around it. And so I talked to my attorney and basically said, it looks like the marketplace is shifting. And he said, yeah, it's a race to the bottom. That was his take on it. And I thought, this is just not my marketplace anymore. So if I'm going to serve at the highest level possible for me, what would I do? And I thought, there are tons of women who are either have come out of a job or wish they could come out of a job and start their own business because they have this incredible talent. They just don't know what the steps are that they need to take to be able to set up a business and have it be successful. So I was thinking about that and thought, I know how to do this. I've built a business, obviously. And I know that there are a certain number of steps that you need to take, especially in the beginning, decisions that you need to make in order to build a firm foundation. And not only that, but kind of get your psychology right. Because as well as I do, that if you're going to be successful, it starts in your mind first.
Absolutely.
And if you can't get that under control, and a lot of people can't, then it's really going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of things. I started coaching, teaching women how to build a firm foundation for their business by answering some very specific questions and doing some very specific exercises. And then I've signed up to be a spiritual coach, leaning into the laws of the universe and to get a certification in that area. Not because I don't know what I'm doing. I've been leaning into the laws of the universe now for forever, but there are other tools in there that I might not know that I want to make sure that I can bring to the table for my clients. And so that's what's kind of got me really excited at this point, is being able to help these people and to see them be successful.
Yeah. So I'm on the same path as you. In part of what I'm looking at is not specifically women, but there are a lot of people whose jobs are never going to come back after this pandemic. And those are the people that I also love to serve. And I think we serve people in very different ways. So it's not like you and I would ever compete against each other. Not that I would worry about that, because that's just not the way either of us live. Like, there's plenty. But I think you're spot on the market. And I absolutely love the way you approach it, which is very different than the way I approach it. I approach it with, here are the 10 steps, go do it. Like, I talk about mindset and some of those other things, but I don't dabble in, or I do dabble, but I send people who are starting a business to someone like you to get that foundation. And so what I hear from clients often is, one, I don't need, I just want the fast, as you hear as well. I'm going to go online and I'm going to go get my entity, right? Yeah. So I want you to address that in a little bit more depth, but also why someone needs an entity and how that really sets them up and builds that foundation for a successful company. Because I know a lot of people who don't think they need entities, or they don't think they need the foundation. I think that's crazy. So go a little more deeper in why they need that, and make sure they identify the steps that they need to take to build that really strong foundation.
Okay, great question. So I look at setting up your LLC as kind of a phase 2. Your first step is really to figure out what it is that you're going to bring to the marketplace that will serve the clients that you choose to serve, and serve them using the things that you are best at doing, right? Because all of us have something really specific that we can do. For example, people say to me, well, you set up your entity solution because you knew a lot about entities. That wasn't my superpower. My superpower is that I can build systems and processes that will allow me to scale a business endlessly, right? That's my superpower. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what the business is, I can scale it. People look at their, they look at what they can do and they think, well, obviously this is what I need to do. When in fact, they need to really take a step back and say, okay, let's answer some fundamental things here. The first thing is, I always ask them, why do you want to do this? Because building your own business is tough. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a really strong why, you're never going to do it. And the reason why I ask this is because it took me 20 years, literally 20 years to figure out my why. And I have to tell you, the first, probably half dozen times I tried to figure this out, the answer I came up with would not have dragged me on my knees over broken glass to get to the finish line. It just wouldn't. It finally took me 20 years to dig deep enough to get to something where I went, oh my God, this is what's driving me. Right? And the only way that I could be secure in being able to know that why was never going to happen to me was to own my own business. Mm-hmm. So if people can't get to that and then go back to, is the only way to satisfy this why by having a business, they're not going to be able to lean into anything when things get really tough, and things will get tough, right? You know yourself. I guess when we were not even a year old, we had decided when we set up the business that we were going to have voice over IP phone systems. Now, this was like 16 years ago, 17 years ago, when voice over IP was brand new. And we were camping out on my sister-in-law's phone system, right? She gave us a bank of numbers that we could use. And so one day I got this email that no business owner ever wants to get. And it said, are you guys still in business? And I'm like, what do you mean, are we still in business? Of course we're still in business. What's going on? Well, it turns out that our phone number had vanished. And so we did some digging frantically, as you can imagine. And we found out that the phone company had not been bought out by somebody else, which is what had been happening one after another. The phone company had gone out of business and taken the numbers with it. We could not get our phone number back. So when I say that things go wrong,
yes, they do.
They really go wrong. And you need to have something that you can look at to say, this is why I'm doing this. This is why the headaches are worth it. This is why I have to keep going. And so even though, especially if you're in something like network marketing, you hear it all the time, you have to know your why. The reason why it doesn't work for most people is because the answers are too superficial.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you got to dig down, and you'll know that you've hit it because you'll probably start crying. And I don't care if you're a man or a woman, makes no difference. The relief of finally figuring out what's driving you is going to cause the tears to flow. And then you know, I've got it. This is what's really driving me. Yeah. And it could be anything. So once you've got that, and you know that the only way to satisfy that why is to own your own business, then you can go on to the second point, which is really, what's my superpower? What can I do that is so unique? And you may look at that and say, well, it's obviously this or it's obviously that, but it may not be. I always think of Dean Graziosi. His girlfriend, who is now his wife, was a hairdresser. And everybody thought, well, she makes a ton of money, and which most hairdressers don't, right? So it must be that she's just this fantastic hairdresser to the stars. Well, when you really dug down deep, that wasn't what her superpower was. Her superpower was being able to organize things so that she could use other people to do the things that she did not need to do, so she could spend her time on the things that only she could do. And that way she could put more clients through her system. She could be available to them more easily. And so she grew her business exponentially based upon that system. So it may not be obvious what your superpower is, and you need to do some digging there. You need to talk to friends, colleagues, family, whatever, and see what they see, and then decide what it is that you can do, and then figure out who it is you want to serve. If you don't get that third question right, who do I want to serve? Then you're going to be miserable. You're going to build a company that you really wish somebody would fire you from, because you're not dealing with the people who bring you joy, with the people who get you to bounce out of bed in the morning, the people that you just can't wait to talk to because they are just so freaking great, right? You're going to have a business where you're serving anybody who's got a credit card. And that's no way to live.
Yeah, well, and in this day and age, that's exceptionally hard to find, right? We're seeing the economy bounce back, but it's exceptionally hard to find. And I would say, I love your methodology. I would say that the way I frame that third question or that third component is, what's the need that I solve, or what's the need that what do people need that I have that I can do? So you're specifically, and I came from corporate America, so I know what that transition looks like. Yep. Talk through a little bit the plight of, I'm in corporate America. I've just left corporate America. I mean, you've talked about the actual process, but talk a little bit more about that mindset, because here's one of the things that happened to me when I left corporate America. So first of all, I was in this very high paying job, not working very hard, and everyone thought I was crazy, right? So I don't know, that's the mindset of your target market, but people thought I was a little Looney Tunes, deciding I want to go start my own business. So there's that. And then I thought, do I have the skills? And what I learned really quickly was the skills that I used in corporate America were the same skills I used. Like, I went from selling software for a big company in Silicon Valley, California, to land development in Mexico. Like, those are not things that are necessarily congruent. However, I use sales skills to sell software, and I use sales skills to sell land. Right. I use people skills. One of my superpowers is contracts and understanding those kind of things. So that was all part of it. So talk a little bit about that piece. Like, how do you transition from, once you've done those 3 steps, which are awesome, how do you transition out of that corporate mindset or that corporate world into the world of being an entrepreneur?
Okay. So there are things that are the same, and there are things that are different, obviously, about being an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I see with women coming out of corporate America is that, as you say, when that paycheck is gone and it kind of lands that there's no more safety, right? Panic starts to set in a little bit, because they're not sure that they're going to be able to do it. And so at that point, you've got to cut that off, because if you don't, it's like a cancer and it's going to eat away at you. And it'll come in the smallest things. So if I'm taking you to step 4, which is, where does your superpower meet the needs of the people that you want to serve, right? What is it that you can do better than anybody else for these people? If you're doubting yourself, if you're thinking that, can I really do this? Then it's going to eat away at you. And so you've got to start looking at how the progression works, from your thoughts to your beliefs, to the words that you say, to the actions that you take. And I'll give you an example of the words, because people think, well, it doesn't really matter what I say, right? Whether I know if I don't mean it. Words have power. Mm-hmm. Absolutely have power. When you put them out into the world, you would be amazed at what happens. There was a fellow that Gary and I were meeting with several years ago. And this fellow had a daughter, and they had been trying to have a second child forever. And his wife, who was now older, was finally pregnant again. And all the doctors were telling her, like, words coming out of their mouths, this is going to be a difficult pregnancy. You're older. We've got to take care of it. There's always a possibility you're going to lose it. I mean, all of these things they were saying that you just wanted to slap them for, really. And so as he was telling us this, I stopped him at one point and I said, you realize that you're speaking that reality into being, right? This whole reality of it's not going to go well. There might be problems with the baby. You may have to, to abort the child. I mean, all of those things. You're speaking that belief into being. Why are you doing this? And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, I don't understand what you're talking about. So I explained to him that words have power. So if you're going to speak about this, you need to speak that you have a serene pregnancy. This is the easiest thing possible. Your baby is going to be the most beautiful, healthy, fantastic child ever born. I mean, whatever it is you want to say, but you need to speak that reality into being. Well, then we got a text from him a few months later saying that he couldn't believe it. The pregnancy had been a dream. There were no problems. The baby was perfect, sound, healthy, wonderful, beautiful, best thing ever born. And so that, I mean, he learned from that what was going on. So if you're in corporate America and you're coming out and you're saying, gee, I don't know if I can do this, and I don't know if clients are going to want this and whatnot, you're speaking that reality into being. So stop it.
Yeah. Act as if, I like to say.
Yeah. You've got to essentially write down what it is that you are intending. And don't be afraid to ask for the type, the who that you really want, the what you really want, the amount of money you really want. You need to put that out there and then believe that it's going to happen. And so that means that you've got to take a really good look at those limiting beliefs, because Janet, you know that if you've got those limiting beliefs, if there's any way that they're going to happen, they're going to happen.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you're just calling them. So, you'll find that a lot of us in corporate America have been trained in doing risk analysis, like what could possibly go wrong. And there's nothing wrong with looking at what could possibly go wrong, but don't dwell on it, right? You need to dwell on the positive side of what could go right. And if something goes wrong, what are you going to put in place to make it right?
Absolutely.
So that you've got that very clear vision of what it is that you can do with these people that you want to serve and this unique talent that you have to bring out into the world, and then keep your eye on that and build your systems around that. So put in place all of your dashboard of, who you're talking to and moving them to, from suspect to prospect to, to client, et cetera, along the way, so that when you look at that, you think, boy, I'm moving, things are coming, things are falling into place. You've got to constantly looking for evidence that what you want is coming to you.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you say about skills. Because like I said, I went from selling software to selling land, but I was using those same skills. Yep. And so one of the things that I would say, and I've worked with, over 1,000 clients in the last 16 years. So I've had some experience of people coming out of corporate America or wanting to start a business. And I'm interested in your perspective on this, because so I'll tell you what my perspective is, and then you can tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about or that you agree with me. There is something to be said for following your passion. And I absolutely agree. Being an entrepreneur is hard. I say that all the time on this podcast. And if you're not passionate about who you serve and what you do, then that is a difficult thing. But let me give you an example of a client that I had 15 years ago, 13 years ago. She was in corporate America. She worked for a big company in HR. And she wanted to go, and I don't even remember what she wanted to do, but let's say it was real estate. I don't remember exactly what it was. But she was like, I want to go into real estate and I want to be a real estate investor or whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, if you want to go from one thing to the other, because she loved real estate, or so she thought. So and I'm like, it's okay to do that as long as you have the basic skills that you have can be transferred to the new job or the new company or the new thing you want to do. So I'm not all about just follow your passion. If you love dogs, I don't know that you should go become a dog walker. I'm not sure that that's the right thing. I think the skills are really important. And then I'll also say this, for me, like I said, I went from software to land, but guess what? I partnered with someone, and I did land development in Mexico, right? So you know all about that whole thing. But I did it by finding a partner who knew land development in Mexico. Like, I didn't do it on my own. So I want to talk a little bit about getting your perspective on the colloquialism that people say, you have to be passionate or follow your passion or whatever. I like, my perspective is that's great as long as you've got skills or you've got someone that has those skills that you're partnering with.
Right. So my take on it is the passion is simply a feeling, and you can build that feeling around anything.
Once the money starts coming in, it's amazing how that passion starts happening.
It's the feeling that you want. And you can build it around anything, but what you're building your business around is, what is your superpower? It's not necessarily what you think you're passionate about. So if you're passionate about collecting dolls, right, that may not be your superpower, right? So what you're looking at is, what am I really good at? If somebody came back to me and said, you're a coach, so what are you good at? I know that I'm good at coaching. I have been doing this for 20 years, just in different areas. Right. So, and I know, because people have given me the feedback, that I can take things that are complex and make them simple, and then help them to understand. And all you're doing in coaching is leading somebody to a realization, to that aha moment. And if you're skillful enough, they'll get there. But it's got nothing to do with, if you're coaching and you're not passionate, it's going to come through, because you're not going to be present with your client. You're not going to be forming the powerful questions. Your brain is going to be off on doing something else. So you certainly want to have that feeling of, what I'm doing is important. I really don't want to do anything else in the world except this. But if you're going to do something that you're passionate about, with that feeling, make sure that you're leaning into your superpowers to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't have any superpowers in that area, then it's probably time to rethink.
Yeah, I agree. I call them skills, you call them superpower, but I couldn't agree with you more. So I want to talk about the role of accountability and the role of community. So I became an entrepreneur begrudgingly. I had no intention of quitting my job. I had no intention. I was hanging out with all these entrepreneurs because I wanted to learn how to build my real estate portfolio, invest. Like, that's the only reason I hung out with this group that I met you through many, many years ago. But sooner or later, I got the entrepreneur bug, and I made that leap because they eliminated my job, and I decided I wasn't going to try to get another one. And so, but for me, I would have never been able to do it if I didn't have this community of people that I was hanging out with. And I would have never been able to do it without Will Maddox, my coach, or somebody to hold me accountable, whether it's a mastermind group or whatever. So I'm interested in your take on accountability and community as it pertains to someone starting a new business.
Okay. So let's take community first. Community gives you a safe place. I mean, if it's a good community, a community gives you a safe place to vent and to ask questions and to celebrate. So being an entrepreneur, especially if you are a solopreneur, it's a really lonely road, right? And there are days when, like when our phone system went away, when you just want to bang your head against a wall and say, oh God, why is this happening? You can't talk to anybody that you've hired, whether it's a virtual assistant or, the guy doing the landscaping for you. I mean, you can't talk to those people. You need to have a safe place to go and say, oh my God, is this happened to anybody else? And what did you do? Or, has anything similar happened to you guys? Or even to celebrate. I mean, can you imagine if you've hit a particular goal, going out to your employees and saying, oh God, we finally made this, and then have them say, does that mean we get a raise? So you really want to have a safe place where you can not only ask for advice or talk about things, but you can vent, or you can celebrate, or you can do all those things that you can't do anywhere else, right? So everybody needs a community like that, regardless of what you're doing. Accountability is one of those things where there are times when, even if you're a disciplined person, where you need to have put a stake in the sand with somebody, and somebody that you respect enough that you really don't want to go back and say, oh, I blew it off because I wanted to binge out on television for the weekend, right? Yeah. You want to have a coach always. Coaches have coaches. Business people have coaches, or multiple coaches, for different areas. Really depends upon what you're doing. But you always have coaches, because you always need somebody to watch your swing, right? Tiger Woods knew that he could never watch himself swing. So he always had, at least one golf coach. And people, playing football and doing, whatever it is you're doing, you always have people who can watch how you're doing it and come back and say, okay, this was perfect, spot on, you've got it, this needs work, right? And if you don't have that, if you've got, the feeling that, well, I can do this on my own, then you are going to hit a wall at some point, right? And you're not going to see it coming. And I've seen people run into walls before, and you kind of look and say, Yeah, I saw that coming, but they didn't, obviously. So you need to have a coach. And the accountability part is when the coach says, okay, so at this point, we've talked about this, you've said this, are you going to do this and by when?
Yeah.
And you've got to put that stake in the sand and look that coach in the eye and say, yes, I'm going to do it and I will do it by this, and mean that I'm not trying, right? This is Yoda, right? No try, just do. So you're not trying, you're going to do it. And unless you're dead, it's going to get done. So you absolutely have to have a coach to hold you not so much accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable, but a coach that you respect, that you're not going to go back and say you blew it off.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I see it all the time. People who they don't coach with me, or they don't coach with someone. I won't even use me they enter my world and they're interested and they get all the free stuff they can get and they're like, okay, that's really good. I'm going to go off and do that. And then I meet them again 6 months later or a year later or a month later, and they're in the exact same spot that they were in, right? So, we see that all the time. I see that all the time in the people that I am with. And the difference is they're not committed to their own personal development. Like, to me, if you're not committed to spending time and money on your own business growth, then it's going to be a much tougher road to haul.
Yeah. And even when you have a coach, we can't hold that vision for you more than you hold it for yourself. Right.
I say we do that all the time. It's like we do believe in them oftentimes before they believe in them, but they've got to get there, I think is what your point is.
Right. They have to care about whether or not they get there more than we care.
Yes.
Because if they don't, then they're going to sabotage themselves with a big S, right? Because they're going to find every excuse why something isn't working or why it's not for them or why they shouldn't do it or whatever. And at some point, your coach is going to say, we're not making any progress because you don't believe in the process, or you don't believe in yourself, or you don't believe in where you're going. So we need to have a real sit down about this and find out what's going on here.
Yeah.
What's really going on.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to do that if you're just trying to hold yourself accountable. So I love the fact that you're focused on get somebody who's skilled in it, who's really going to hold you accountable and work you through those moments that we all struggle with. I mean, I've been coaching for 16 years and I still have times where I'm like, I need my coach to say, let's face what's going on because this isn't working, or that so we, like I said, coaches need coaches. Everybody needs coaches. So I absolutely love that. All right. So I want to talk about your free gift. But before I do, is there any other words of wisdom that you have for a woman who is, one, thinking about it, or two, has decided to do it? Like, what are your words of wisdom for those women out there?
Okay. I guess the greatest words of wisdom is beware the shiny object. If you're thinking about starting a business, you're going to start to see ads for everyone in creation who can get you 10,000 clients overnight. Right. And what happens is that what you don't see is this so-called overnight success. I did it. You could do it too. You don't see the 3 years when he was struggling, or the 4 years when he was struggling to get to that point. So just beware the shiny object of people making promises that you think, this is going to be a snap. All I do is follow this system and it's going to happen, because that's not the way that it works. It's not that you can't be successful quickly, depending upon your skill set and what you have to offer and how much the marketplace wants it. It just means that it's going to be something that's going to be built around you, your talents, your uniqueness, and what it is that you're bringing to the people that you want to serve. So just beware of all those shiny objects. Go look for a coach that you resonate with. Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be me or Janet or whatever, but you need to resonate with that coach. And when you find that person, then go sign up with them and let them help you. Listen to the process and get started. And that way you're going to be able to build a successful business.
I love that. All right. So you've got a masterclass that you are giving to our listeners. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I am. Once a month, I hold a masterclass that basically goes through some of the questions and more that we were talking about earlier, and explaining to you why it's important, how to get to the answers on these questions so that you can start building your foundation. And then at the end of the masterclass, I give you the opportunity, if you would like to come and have a complimentary 30-minute call. I might be able to solve a problem for you, and we can see whether or not, I'm somebody you want to work with, or you would, be better off with someone like Janet or somebody else. The thing about coaching is that you've got to have a feel for your coach. You've got to resonate with them. We have to resonate with you. And so we like to have that kind of beginning call just to say, look, you've got this problem. I can give you a solution. That's great, but I may not be the coach for you. Why don't you go see Janet? Why don't you go see, some other coach, and then see, who works for you best.
Awesome.
So that's my free gift. Come to the masterclass, learn about the things that you need to find out to build that foundation. And then you can go on to the logos, the names, the LLC setups, all of those things, which we still do, by the way. We still have clients coming back to us for their LLCs because they can't find anybody who does it better.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm your number one testimonial or number one fan. So I love that. So I have a link to the show notes, the link to the masterclass in the show notes. There's a way to contact Wendy in the show notes. So don't hesitate to jump on that. Take that masterclass. If you're thinking about starting a business or you've already started a business, I guarantee Wendy will help you lay the foundation you need to build that business successfully. So Wendy, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. I'm trying to figure out what time of day it is. I really appreciate it. It was great to hear your wisdom, your expertise, but also it's just great to connect with you again. I know we had a phone call, but it's great to see you and to chat with you and just connect with you again. It's been way too long. Let's make sure we don't let it go another 10 years or however long it's been since we last talked. Let's not let that happen again.
Absolutely. Let's keep in touch and come and visit.
I would love to. Now that we can actually leave our houses, I would love to come and visit. So we'll definitely make that happen. All right, Wendy, thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, Ben, take us out.
Thank you for listening to the Breakaway Entrepreneur Podcast. If you like the show, please rate, recommend, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts so we can share more actionable insights with the entrepreneur community. Until next time, challenge your mindset, be bold, take action, and financial freedom will follow. You can get helpful resources and templates to guide and inspire you from Janet's free Breakaway Entrepreneur Toolkit. Get it now by going to www.breakawaybusinesscoaching.com/toolkit.